First, it was Rolly and Barroso, bad stoppage by Tony Weeks, and now it's this bad decision with Haney and Loma.
Right, right. Yeah, we're in the middle of something. I don't know. I don't know what's going on exactly, but I mean, Loma, to me, it wasn't like the worst decision I've ever seen. But, decision is a decision. You got to have the right one. And, but boxing is a business, apparently. And, that's that plays a big part of it. It's just like politics, it's not everything that it seems.
It's crazy, but now that you mentioned politics, some guy told me the other day this bad decision could be due to politics.
Yeah, well, whatever it is. I mean, it's a deep subject. It's political. It could be corruption. It could be ignorance, complacency. I mean, I think at the higher level, the judges should be qualified, but I mean, I don't want to say any names, but I know guys who've been judges on a local level, regional level, and I know for a fact they don't have qualifications. I know that for a literal fact. They should not and shouldn't have. They aren't anymore, but they shouldn't have been in a judge's chair. No chance in the world. So it is what it is sometimes.
How did you score this fight between Haney and Loma?
To be honest, I've never scored a fight in my life. I never watch a fight and write down the score or anything like that. I just watch it, and whoever I think won, I think they won. I think it was close. I thought Loma fought the better fight. I thought he landed the better shots, and that was, like I said, I didn't go round by round, but I did think he fought the better fight. I think it was Max Kellerman once. I think he was the one who, I don't know if he originally said it, but he said one time he judges a fight based on who would I rather be. Watch the fight and say to myself, which one of those two guys would I rather be? And I just felt like I would have rather been Lomachenko for that fight.
Yeah, I agree. Were you surprised that Loma pressed the action?
No, I mean, he's a gritty guy. A lot of times when you get a guy who's a really slick boxer and skills and all that, people don't associate him with that type of mentality. But I think Lomachenko is a calculated guy. And when it comes down, kind of like Ray Leonard, like when it comes down to the moment when you have to dig down and fight, he's that guy, and he, I think he surprised Haney a few times, with his power and his ability to get those shots in there. But yeah, he definitely has a dog in him for sure.
Do you think that with Haney shoving Loma, that lit a fire in Loma?
I would assume so. I think, to be honest, like, Haney's a young guy, I guess, and, kind of, for lack of a better term, like ignorant, ignorant to, I think he thought that was a good thing to do. To me, that shows weakness. You know what I mean? I think it shows weakness. Certain guys, I think it's kind of like when you're in school and you're young and you're stupid and you're actually mad that certain kids, especially if you think he's weaker, that they're not afraid of you. It's like an insult that this guy's not afraid of me. And I think Loma didn't have to say anything. Loma just standing there kind of smirking and smiling at him. I think it is fear of him. That was my take on it. And the thing is, Haney's not a guy, he's not a killer. You know, he's not a Tommy Hearns. He's not Roberto Duran. You know, I don't think fear of Haney is like even a part of the equation. But I do think that he was insulted that the guy didn't show fear of him.
Yeah, I heard some guy saying that Haney shoving Loma was due to the fact that Haney was somewhat nervous going this fight. What
I
do you think
mean,
about
you know,
that?
there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure, and no matter what they try to portray, there's pressure, and that's one of the telltale signs. Like there's signs that will show through that don't lie. You know what I mean? Like you can have a straight face or whatever, but you know, say you have two guys staring each other down. They're both just staring, but one of them diverts his eyes, right? Well, that's involuntary. You know, but George Foreman wouldn't divert his eyes. You know, when he was looking at Joe Frazier, he was looking at Joe. He was telling Joe, "Let's do it. Let's stare. Let's see who's going to stare more." You know, and Joe did it too. So I think I don't think Haney wanted to do that. I don't think it was planned. I think he just the nervousness or whatever, the apprehension, whatever, the moment caught up to him, and I think he did it almost involuntarily.
You've talked about this in the past. You've said how it's I guess fighters get butterflies before a fight, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Like you're going to go through a what's the word? Plethora of, emotions and feelings and thoughts before a fight. And every fighter is trying to remain calm. Every fighter in the weeks before the fight, and then especially the day of and the day before, they're trying to remain as calm as possible. They want to give an outward appearance that they're calm and ready and confident. And sometimes it comes through in incidents like that where they're not so confident. You know what I mean? And you could take a guy like Sugar Ray Leonard. When would you ever see him do that? You would never see Ray do that. He wouldn't need to. Muhammad Ali wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? It wouldn't. It wasn't in his nature. Now. He did it. He did something similar with Ernie Terrell, but that was a completely different situation. It was political. There was different things involved. But in general terms, a guy like that, like Loma, was the guy. Loma was calm, smiling. You can't phase Loma, and I think it's a thing where people from that part of the world, where Loma's from, he just came back from the war, right? It's a different mentality, and I've spoken on this many, many times. It's a different mentality, and a lot of guys in America, maybe they grow up in a tough area, urban area, whatever it is, and they think they're tough or they're a gangster or whatever. But guys like Loma, they're from a different part of the world. They're not from, it's not a different neighborhood. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a couple blocks over. This is a different mentality. You're not phasing Lomachenko and Artur Beterbiev and guys like that. You're not phasing them with, a mean look and a threat. It's a joke to them. What they've been through and how they've lived their lives and grown up is a joke compared to how so many of these kids have grown up. So I think Haney probably recognized that in a sense, and he didn't know what else to do, and he shoved him, and it was stupid. It was just a stupid little thing.
Yeah, it was. But going to the scorecards, I had it 7-5 for Loma. What did you have it? Well, you say you didn't score the fight, I guess. But
I never scored a fight in my life, honestly. I would say a fight like that, you're talking 1 or 2 points in either direction. It's a close fight. If you score 1 or 2 rounds differently, it changes everything. It changes the whole aspect of the fight. So, I thought it was a close fight. I wouldn't say it was. This wasn't like Chavez and Sweet Pea Whitaker. It wasn't that kind of robbery. It wasn't like, oh, this guy that was a horrific Roy Jones in the Olympics robbery. It wasn't that. But by the same token, if one guy is supposed to win and he doesn't, that's a robbery. You gave it to the wrong guy. I guess it appeared to me, like I say, if I had to choose who I'd rather be at the end of the fight, I'd rather be Loma. I felt he did better. So but that's boxing. People are going to be upset about it for a week or so, and they're going to forget about it. I mean, think about it. Roy Jones in the Olympics was 35 years ago. Chavez and Whitaker was 30 years ago. Everybody was enraged at both of them. It hasn't slowed the robberies down. It hasn't slowed the corruption. It hasn't slowed the ignorance down, the lack of, ability of judges. It hasn't slowed that down at all. So, we're still in the same boat we've always been in.
Do you think this decision can be somewhat similar to what we saw with Floyd Mayweather and Jose Luis Castillo in their first fight?
In terms of what? What do you mean?
Yeah, well, with some guys said that Castillo should have won that Floyd Mayweather fight, that first fight.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was close, but by the same token, Floyd recognized that, and he fought him again, and he beat him convincingly. So you have to respect Floyd Mayweather for doing that. So Haney could, but Haney's not Floyd. Like, Haney's not in control like Floyd was in control. So, they may not want to do that. They may not want to put him in a rematch.
I was just going to ask you, do you think there's a possibility we could see a rematch?
I mean, it would make sense, like from a boxing standpoint. But honestly, I don't really get into the business end of it. So I don't know how many buys it had and views it had. I don't even know what they made for the fight. I have no idea. So I don't know. I mean, it would make sense, but we live in a world today where there aren't a lot of guys who would want a rematch. They would say, I got you, I won, I'm gonna stay with this. I'm not gonna risk having it go the other way this time. So I don't know if Haney, I don't know much about Haney. I don't know if he's that type of guy like Floyd to give a rematch, but you have to respect Floyd Mayweather because he did that, I believe, twice. Castillo and the other guy, Maidana. Yeah. So you have to respect Floyd for that. He fought them both again. He beat them both solid. He in hindsight, that was a really special thing that Floyd did. He wasn't unrealistic. He recognized it was close. It was controversial. A lot of people thought he lost. He said, okay, I'm a real fighter. I'm going to do it again. And I don't know if Haney's that guy, but we'll see.
What do you think about Loma trying to appeal this decision?
Yeah. I mean, is he? Is that what he's trying to do?
Yeah.
It's waste of time. I mean, it's the dumbest thing ever. Like, it's pointless. like you couldn't find anything more pointless than appealing a decision in pro boxing. I'll give him the decision already. It's not going to happen. You're wasting your time, Loma. You're wasting your time.
So where does Loma go from here?
Well, there's plenty of guys he could fight. Plenty of them. There's all kinds of good guys in that weight class. Imagine him and Ryan Garcia. That'd be a good fight. But like I say, it's business. So they're ultimately going to choose fights and a path that maximizes their potential, their earning potential, and not just the fighter, but the promoter, even more so the promoter. So we'll have to look at it from that viewpoint, because any weight class, any fight, you could. I mean, look at Arthur Beterbiev. Everybody knows him and Bivol is a great match, but I mean, is it going to happen? We don't know. Spence and Crawford has been a potential great match for 5 or 6 years. Now it's just now supposedly going to happen. That's insane. Like, that's not the real world of boxing. That's not, that's protecting your lead. That's protecting the money guy. That's protecting the position. Guys like Ray Leonard didn't do that. And that's why I respect Ray, Tommy, Roberto Duran, all those guys. I respect those guys way more than I do the fighters today. You see guys, they're talking about, well, I've got to feed my family and I need to, secure. Listen, if you have over $1 million in the bank and you can't feed anyone, then you're doing it wrong. You need a lesson. You need to go back to school and take a class on how to manage money, because I could live on $1 million for the rest of my life, no problem. So, I don't want to. When you've already fought for $3 and $4 million at a time, I don't want to hear that you got to feed the family anymore. That's over with. We're past the point of raising funds on GoFundMe to feed the kids.
So do you think we'll see then Haney versus Shakur Stevenson, or you don't think that fight's going to happen?
They're going to hold. Listen, if they held off on Mayweather and Pacquiao and Spence Crawford, they're going to hold off. They're both young. They're going to hold it. They might hold off on that one for 10 years and let it build up. So yeah, I don't look forward to that happening, just because I see the plan. I see the pattern already developing in the world. Floyd, for all his greatness, I think he's laid down the groundwork for these guys to follow a path that is not going to endure them to fans, because they're not as great as Floyd. They're not as good a fighter as Floyd was. They're not as untouchable as he was. So people aren't going to go for this. They did it with Floyd, but they're not going to do it with everybody, And Pacquiao is more beloved because he fought everybody. He fought all those guys, and he was much smaller and he took much more risk. So I think, it all depends on which guy they're going to follow.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. But like you said, I don't think Haney and Shakur Stevenson are going to fight anytime soon.
Nah, I would doubt it.
And I hope to see Loma back in the ring later on this year, if not early next year.
Well, I mean, that's what you just said is the indication of how crazy it is. Like, the idea is that he probably won't fight again for the rest of the year, right? It's only May. We're only in May. He should fight 2 or 3 more times this year. But we live in a different world now. These guys don't fight. They're not active. They don't keep busy. It's all, and that tells you it's all about money, because they know they're making enough. They're not hungry in the sense of, it's one thing to get hungry for one fight, build up for one fight, train really hard. But to be hungry for a 10-round fight, to keep busy. Imagine if you said, as a manager, I would say to my guy, all right, Tank, we're going to take a 10-round fight against a good, decent guy. We're going to do a 10-round fight on ESPN just to keep busy. He would never do that. Never, for that type of money that he would get for that. So that shows you the reality is that money, these guys are money. They're not trying to become better fighters, truly, because if they were, they would fight as often as James Toney did. And they would fight tough, non-title 10-round fights like James Toney did, keeping busy, keeping sharp. They don't do that. They fight twice a year. That's not real. That's not towards building a sharper career. That's towards protecting your lead and making the biggest money you can make possible.
And I guess I'll let you go with the International Boxing Hall of Fame coming up.
Yeah.
You talked about James Toney. You talked about some of these old school fighters, that we grew up watching. So I'll see you in a couple weeks.
I'll be there.
Good luck with the Clay Waterman fight.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on, Iceman.
All right, buddy. I'll see you up there.